to Political Roundtable. Doug Miles with you tonight, joined again by Gary Schuster, former White House correspondent for CBS News and the Detroit News. And Gary, of course, as we had the State of the Union address coming up Tuesday night of this week, you've covered many of those, going back to the Carter and Reagan days. What'd you think?
Well, it was. It depends on when those speeches are given, but this one happened to be, coming into this election year of 2012, and the president did what all presidents do when they're coming into an election year like this. They use that State of the Union address to, one, tell the nation how much they have done, and two, sort of set themselves up. This is sort of the speech that is the ground floor speech for his campaign, and that's what he did last night. He talked about the things that he had done, talked about getting things done with Congress, which of course never happens, and especially in an election year. So it was sort of pie in the sky, but he had to do it. That's what he had to do, and it was predictable. It was a little long, I thought. It was an hour and 6 minutes, which tends to be a little long as history sort of reflects on these speeches. But like I say, it's an election year speech, and he came right out of that speech and did 3 stops today on the road, which is something Reagan used to do. Presidents before Reagan never really did that, where they speak and then go and sort of carry that momentum that they've supposedly created with the speech out in cities around the country to keep it going, to get sort of a second lead out of it, of expanding on the things that they had talked about. So that's what he did. It was predictable in that sense, and he didn't let you down.
Yeah, basically a laundry list. All those State of the Unions are in a sense, laundry lists of things that the president wants to get done, but primarily focusing on what a lot of people think is the redistribution of wealth. I mean, he's talking about the American dream, at least President Obama's version of that, but closing the gap between the wealthy and those that aren't so wealthy. That has kind of been his mantra since he became president, right? But he tried to sell that again, I guess, to the voters.
Well, he did, but the thing is, he's got to sell it to the Congress. The voters are. I mean, you don't see too much about that. You see the Occupy Wall Street versions around the country, whether it's Occupy St. Petersburg or Occupy Sarasota. Some are more successful than others, which is sort of a wealth distribution situation that is going on around the country. But he is not getting Congress to buy into this, especially the Republicans, of course. And so nobody really expects any of this to be done this year. He's got another one to help people who have maintained their mortgages despite hard times. And there's this legislation he wants to have Congress work on would help people who have made the payments. These are not foreclosures. These are not short sales. These are people who have made the payments to help them out, maybe to the tune of $3,000 a year in reduced mortgage payments, given that the rates are about 4% or a little under. But Congress isn't going to pass that because there are other things that would go on to it, and the Republicans don't want to open it up, so to speak. So I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of anything that he suggested last night pass.
I think one of the biggest things people probably perk their ears up, whether you liked it or not, depending on what side of the aisle, is he is talking about, well, the rich people should pay more taxes. That has been another angle that it's been kind of a battle between Democrats and Republicans, and I don't know how easy that's going to sell either. Who wants to pay more taxes? If you're making more money, you don't want to pay more. If you're not making much money, why pay more taxes if it's going to be wasted?
Well, that's right. It's called like the Buffett bill after Warren Buffett, who's makes a bunch of money, just like, and it's going into the presidential campaign. It's now Mitt Romney's made $47 million, and he paid 14%. $4 million of it went to the Mormon Church, apparently. And some other, contributions he made, but it's basically capital gains tax. It's not income tax, it's capital gains tax. And I don't think you're going to see Congress right took office, the talk was that the first thing he was going to do was raise that to 20%, the rate that capital gains were being charged. Well, he walks in, and the first thing that happens is Wall Street blows up, and so the banks collapsed, and so he couldn't very well come in and say we're going to add 5% to the capital gains tax. So it just hasn't gone anywhere. And like I say, I don't think you're going to get it done this year because it's an election year. So there again, even though it's in the vernacular of presidential debates now, especially on the Republican side, obviously, there's talk about it, but you're not going to see anything done about it.
Let's move on now to another event down here in the Tampa Bay area on Monday, the Republican primary taking place at USF in Tampa, one of a series of seems like 20 or 30 we've seen so far, but just checking the ratings, Gary, the one on Monday night did pretty well, over 7 million people tuning in to watch that on NBC, and I guess people tuning in to see what Newt Gingrich might say next, right? He kind of caused a little bit of stir the week before with going up against the media.
Well, what Newt did here was came to Florida, where there's a lot of attention, and sort of fed red to the crowd, which is what he has done well. He's done well in the debates. He's not so much a politician, sort of door to door, hand to hand, but he does well in the debates because he throws those red meat lines out there that the real conservatives were sort of following him. Got a lot of applause and a lot of support last night every time he laid one of those lines out, and that sort of furthers it to the point where he was upset to see that NBC in that debate format told the crowd not to applaud for anything. Brian Williams told them, don't applaud or boo or anything else. We want no emotion shown. Well, Gingrich comes back and says, "Well, I'm not going to participate in any debates where you can't have audience participation. We have to have that, or I'm not going to go." Well, he sort of backed off of that yesterday, saying he'd go to the debate in Jacksonville tomorrow night, even though he's a little upset about how this is done. And he told Fox News, who's going to broadcast it tomorrow, that we ought to let the audience participate. Well, hey, we'll see how that works out.
I'd rather have respectfully, obviously you don't want the booing and all that where you can't hear the candidates, but why not let them applaud? I mean, when they make that announcement, it's kind of an eerie silence sometime, or you'll hear a few people snicker once in a while. Why not let them applaud?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the ones where it's been, unless it's excessive,
right,
it has not been excessive. I think you ought to let them do that. It's an expression. They ought to be allowed to do it, and unless it just gets out of hand. You're down to only a handful of candidates now debating, so you don't have lots of it, so it's probably all right.
Just getting back to the previous debate in South Carolina, where Gingrich went after John Hill a bit for CNN airing of that, or asking the question about the interview with the ex-wife on ABC. As a journalist, Gary, your thoughts on whether that interview with the ex-wife was journalistically done at the right time, 2 days before that primary, or would you have done it, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you got to look at why. His ex-wife had made but there's another ex-wife as well. He's on his third wife here. So.
Right.
But the second situation, and you get into whether this is a liberal media sort of setting him up, going to the wife, knowing he'll talk right before the primary, putting it out. To me, it smells a little, but journalistically, sort of anything is fair game as long as it's not too far. And
different attitude, different ball game, really, from when you were covering the Carter campaign and the Reagan campaign. I mean, I don't remember anything of this type of journalism going on. And there's always been some little bit here and there, but it has changed even since you were covering those campaigns, hasn't it?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. It has. It's gotten a little more political, if you want to call it that, in that there's so many news. You've got a couple things going on. You've got a lot of news outlets, whether it's online, broadcast, cable, all kinds of different outlets. And what happens is there's so much competition that you don't have a news cycle anymore where you'd paper and you'd have a 5 or 6 or 7 hour lull between the late afternoon's last edition and the morning paper's first edition, and the news broadcast at 6:30 at night with John Chancellor or Cronkite, whoever it was, and then it was sort of dead air for a while. Well, now it's not. It's constant, and there's a lot of competition, and everybody's looking for the story, everybody's looking for the lead, and everybody's looking to build on whatever is out there. So it's a whole different ballgame.
It used to be Friday evenings. That kind of was it for the week, and the weekends would almost be complete lull unless some enormous story happened. But even that's no longer a lid on it, right? And they used to call that put a lid on it on Friday, and then the next thing it wouldn't be till Monday you really pick it up again, right?
Well, the White House used to have would announce every day. Actually, there's a lid. They'd say at 4:30 they'd announce that there's a lid on till the next morning. And that meant they were not going to put out any statements. The president wasn't going to talk at a photo op. Now, I don't know what it's like inside the White House now as far as lids go, but there's constant. I mean, last night they thought that after Romney talked about his income taxes, which they've been the media's been trying to get him to release, he releases those at the same time where Fannie Mae that had been doing, that hired Gingrich as a lobbyist, put out some things with his contract, and the media wasn't happy with those, and so they went back to Fannie Mae, and Fannie Mae said, oh, they put out even tonight, meaning last night, way after any lid, any deadline. That deadline, like I say, is a moving target. It's 24/7. Whenever it comes out, somebody's there to cover it.
Gary, as we record this segment of Political Roundtable on a Wednesday night, just before we went on, polls coming out where it shows Newt Gingrich surging in the polls, tightening the gap with Mitt Romney here in Florida. I guess there really has been a kind of a two-candidate race for the most part, although Santorum may want to have something to say about that. Ron Paul not even really taking part much down here in media for Florida, at least that's what he says anyway, going into last night. But how do you see it right now? Very important for Gingrich to win this, coming off the momentum of South Carolina, or can he continue in the race if Romney rolls?
Well, I think it's important it's important for both of them, because Florida happens to be a winner-take-all. So there's 50 delegates at stake here, and the winner gets all of them. So it's a big deal, because there are some caucus states over the next several weeks, Nevada, Kansas, some other ones. But the next big group of primaries is what they call Super Tuesday on March 6th. Number of states, Michigan, where Romney should do well, where his governor, he could do well there. But if Gingrich picks up this state, and right now, as you say, they put out those six percentage points. There's a lot of polls
How do you explain Ron Paul, Gary? I mean, he seems to be touching a nerve with apparently younger people. I guess no matter what, they're going to stick with him. Just reading some of the Facebook posts I see online and Twitter posts, they're sticking with him, even though he really has no chance to get the nomination. But for some reason, he's resounding with them. Can you explain that?
Well, you know, I sort of look at it as him being sort of a protest candidate.
Mm-hmm.
He has enough money to participate in some state caucuses, some state primaries, but not very much. And I don't want to say he's like Ross Perot, because he's not as vociferous as Perot was, and not as pointed as Perot was. But in his own way, he has attracted a following, and it's sort of a loyal following. Like I say, it may be a protest. It's the voice. It's the voice that wants to be heard and can't agree that Romney or Gingrich is the voice they want speaking for them. And so they want a voice, and Ron Paul has put himself in a position where he's that voice.
Yeah, he's hanging in there, and there's a loyal following that's going to stay with him at least for, I would say, a while longer after Florida. But we'll keep an eye on it. We'll watch the returns next Tuesday, and we'll do a recap next week on the Political Roundtable here. Gary Schuster, always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Doug. Great being with you as always.